Path of Exile Affliction League is almost upon us, my friends. 3.23 is going to be dropped in about 5 days as of the moment of recording of this video, and it's time for us to start at least penciling, planning what league starters are we going to play with, which ones are going to be good, which ones are probably not going to be so good, taking into consideration mainly what has been announced so far in the live stream, presenting Affliction to us, and the patch note. Let's go based on the changes to the gems, and let me make my first assertion here, and that is going to be around the league starter, the Holy Summoner. Holy Summoner build. I loved it during the Ancestor League. It was one of my, if not the most favorite Summoner builds, so I think it is going to fare pretty well still, because from what I'm seeing here in the patch notes right now, all that changes for the Affliction League right now is that Absolution skill and Herald of Purity, which are two big skills that are part of that build. Yeah, they are changing in a way that the quality of your gem, previously it used to increase the damage of your minions, which was great. Now it changes the cooldown recovery rate. So instead of flat increasing the damage up to 20%, it's going to allow them to attack almost twice as fast, which is not too bad. Yeah, so that is a good increase, but I think generally a slightly minor nerf to the damage if I had to speculate, but I think Holy Summoner build is going to be as viable as it was in the previous league. Now, point number 2 here, the build number 2 is Arc. Arc Witch, Arc Elementalist Witch, or Vaal Arc. Yeah, what is changing in Arc and Vaal Arc, if anything, in the Affliction League? Well, my friends, they are simply giving it 1% extra chance of critical striking. So they are kind of boosting the damage of Arc and Vaal Arc a little bit, and the quality of the gem now is going to give the skill an extra chance to chain, but not that much. 1 extra chain, it will chain 1 extra time. So I guess the clear speed of it is going to increase, and all its benefits of Arc Witch and Vaal Arc Witch, as well as its shortfalls, are still going to be the same, more or less the same. But if you loved the play of the Arc and you know what it's good for, such as the map clearing, and what it's not so good for, such as staying in one place and firing and fighting big fat bosses, well, it's still going to be exactly the same, but the build is going to be as viable if you want to play it. Now, one substantial change that they're making is build number 3, and my recommendation of build number 3 is any form of Cyclone based build. Not Cyclone that is being used as a vehicle to, for example, cast a certain other spell as you're channeling Cyclone, because we have a lot of builds like that. I played, I don't know, Summon Phantasm builds, Summoner builds that are using Cyclone purely as a vehicle to generate more Phantasms as you spin around, but Cyclone itself was not being used as a damage dealing ability. Well, right now what they're doing is they are changing Cyclone skill by basically saying that it no longer has the first hit deals 50% less damage, so that's no longer the case. It's not nerfed as it used to be anymore, and they are removing some other kind of things that used to reduce the damage of Cyclone itself. They want us, by the look of it, they want us to start damaging items, damaging enemies with Cyclone again, which is great news, because I used to love Cyclone and my Sharknado builds, as you know, with my sharks swirling around. I love it, I love it. So now what they're doing is they're removing all that nerf, and they're saying that Cyclone now has 10% increased area effect per 0.1 meter additional strike range at all gem levels. So you increase the melee strike range. As you scale melee strike range, it also creates additional area of effect, which is pretty good, and quality of the gem now provides more movement speed, so you can spin faster and you can move faster, not massively because it's 0 to 10%, so it's only 10% increase at maximum, instead of that 0 to 10% increased area effect. Anyway, point of the matter is that Cyclone builds where Cyclone is impaling, Cyclone does some damage, and I will come up with some specific builds for you, but basically I'd like to draw your attention to the builds, to the league starters where Cyclone is being used as a primary damage dealer ability. It's great news. Now, Tornado Shot was a king of the Trial of the Ancestors 3.22 League. Everyone and their dog were playing Tornado Shot, and even I had a couple of kinda, well, semi-failed, semi-successful attempts to play Tornado Shot. I just didn't push those builds too far up into the game. So Tornado Shot, I think, is still going to be viable. I think people are still going to play it, but I think GGG here are doing a good job by sort of balancing a little bit the dominance of these builds and reducing that dominance a little bit by basically now tweaking slightly Tornado Shot with the quality of the gem, related to the quality of the gem. So quality now will cause the skill to fire +1 additional projectile instead of increasing the projectile damage by 20%. The difference to the damage and what it exactly does to you and I as casual players presumably, otherwise why are you watching my channel, I'm a casual, is going to be marginal, insignificant. So Tornado Shot is basically not nerfed, not massively buffed, but it will fire an additional projectile, which is always nice. So I think those builds, if you like the playstyle of Tornado Shot, are still going to be available to you. Now, point number 5 here is Toxic Rain. Toxic Rain is bread and butter, very easy, very cheap, very successful, and it's possible to play Toxic Rain builds as league starters and be successful and pleased with your performance very, very early on, with practically no gear investment, practically no skill really. You just shoot and things around you are dying. That's why Toxic Rain has always been very popular. But I think that this league, Affliction, is not going to be any different. I think it still is going to have Toxic Rain front and center if you like playing Toxic Rain and you don't find it boring, because I personally find Toxic Rain rather boring, hence me playing Holy Summoner, right? But I think Toxic Rain hasn't changed super much. Again, quality of the gem now will provide certain amount of seconds increase of base duration of the skill, okay, instead of increasing area of effect. So one would argue that it's a marginal increase to damage as opposed to the area that it covers, okay? Not too bad, not too bad. Now, point number 6, basically the undead summoner that focuses on zombies. Please be aware that while that league starter is viable and you may choose to go with your zombies, Red Baron based builds and other kind of stuff without being very specific, a raised zombie, in my humble opinion, again not running every math and I'm welcoming your opinion in the comments below, is nerfed. Zombies as primary damage dealer have been nerfed overall. Listen, hear me out, hear me out. So here is what they've done. Zombies no longer attack enemies with an area of effect slam, which is very handy, especially clearing maps, especially early on. That's what made it an amazing league starter before. So they only attack enemies with a melee attack. So until you have something that allows you to hit everyone, like a support gem, right? You are no longer clearing as well as you used to with the zombies. That is a nerf, one way or another. The gem now has minions. The gem now provides minions with 0 to 38% of maximum life. That's the gem gives it to you, replacing the 0 to 76% increased cooldown recovery rate and increased area of effect for raised zombies slam attack. So they are now going to be fatter, straight away the zombies. Okay, not a terrible thing. And the quality of the gem now provides you with maximum of +1 summon zombies. That's from the quality of the gem, instead of increased maximum minion life, because we got it through other sources. So overall, they are not hitting everything now, zombies, but they are fatter by definition. So it's not a particular nerf, not a particular buff, hence the undead summoners based around zombies are still gonna be viable this league. Build number 7 is still an undead summoner, but specializing on skeletons. Some of you like to specialize on skeletons. I personally don't, because skeletons, while they hit hard, they move slowly, and they also are temporarily summoned minion. They don't just run around with you forever. They only get summoned temporarily, unlike Diablo 4. So what they've done to skeleton summoners, not much, all that much. The quality of the gem will now provide you with an extra summon skeleton, similar to zombies, not too bad, instead of causing them to deal more damage. There are other ways to boost the minion damage, and there is no other change to summon skeletons, which is not a bad news. So if you like your skeletons, if you like to summon them when you need to and swarm the area and get them, you know, kill everything for you, and if that's your main damage dealer of your undead summoner build, well, you can still go ahead with those kind of builds. Now, build number 8 here is Summon Raging Spirits SRS based Undead Summoner. And yes, it's a different league starter to the zombie based one and skeleton in case you're new here. I love SRS builds because they're short-term fiery skulls that find their targets. They are fire and forget. They find the targets. You don't need to work too hard. They do the work for you. Now, what happens with Summon Raging Spirits? They have changed it. But it again is not bad news, not good news, it's okay news. So Summon Raging Spirits no longer increases the gem, that no longer increases progressively minion damage. Instead, the Raging Spirit's melee attack now naturally gains damage, scaling with the level, at least according to the patch notes. Quality of the gem of SRS will now provide a chance to summon extra minion. Up to 30% chance to summon an extra minion, which is not too bad at the top quality level of the gem, of course, instead of giving the minion up to 20% increased movement speed. So they will be inherently a little bit slower, but there are other ways to boost their speed, right? But they are going to be swarming the area a bit faster. However, if I was going with SRS build, I would certainly look into implementing a support gem called Unleash. That is something that would allow you to flood the area with them faster anyway, even without the highest quality of the gem. But this is still going to be a very viable league starter. I recommend it. I personally recommend it. Finally, here, as far as the lineup of summoners is concerned, we will mention one last summoner that's based on Spectres. Okay, Spectres, Raise Spectre is, we have used it in a mix. Obviously, you don't just run a summoner build, just a Spectre summoner build, but we have used Spectres in the past as sometimes we use them to buff our minions. When you run a minion army build, for example, you use typically Spectres, for example, the silverback apes, yeah, from Riverways or from somewhere else like that, from Ashen Fields, and they are throwing those little frenzy charges on your other minions, and they can still do that. But basically, the change that I'm seeing here to the build, to this gem, suggests to us that the builds using Spectres front and center are still going to be viable, where Spectres are going to be buffers and they're going to be mid shields. Mid shields primarily, not damage dealers per se. Why? Because the quality of the gem now causes minions to have up to plus 20% to all elemental resistances, which is not terrible, especially if you're already a mid shield as a Spectre, as a Raised Spectre, instead of providing up to 20% of increased minion movement speed. Okay, so it's not a massive nerf, not a massive buff. All it tells you is that Spectres are not designed to be primary damage dealers. They are designed to be something like a support to your minion army. Still very viable. So those, again, those variations of the league starters around summoners are gonna work really, really, really well. And point number 10, finally we got to it, is our Righteous Fire Juggernaut and any other builds that are using Righteous Fire as primary damage dealer. What happened to Righteous Fire? Well, very interesting. So Righteous Fire no longer will deal a certain amount of base fire damage per second. No longer does it. Instead, it will deal 70% of your maximum life and energy shield as base fire damage per second. And both of those values previously were 35%. So, again, very hard to number crunch right now without seeing specific examples in the game and me not being a spreadsheet min-maxer. But it sounds to me like it's a minor buff. It possibly is even a buff, but obviously that depends on how large your maximum life is. I think that maybe early on in the game, Righteous Fire is actually not going to be as powerful because the base damage will be probably lower while you're a bit skinny. But then as you gain more life, as you basically scale your life, yeah, not purely life regen, but life pool, then you're gonna burn everything around just as well, if not more, if not better than you used to. I love Righteous Fire builds and I have a few on my channel in case you are looking for some. And quality of the gem will now provide plus up to 0.3 meters to radius instead of up to 20% to increased burning damage. That's a nerf. That's a nerf. It increases the radius by not much. It's not even 3 meters. It's 0.3 meters, like 30 centimeters. Like, what the hell? Instead of almost 20% of more burning damage. So I'm not very happy about it. I still would like to believe that Righteous Fire is a viable league starter. But yeah, you tell me what you think. I think it's a nerf, but I don't want to make a conclusion on it. And that's it, my friends. There is more to say. Obviously, there is a ton more of different builds possible. There is you will say to me, Gyro, how can you forget about the cold dot build? Well, it's because I'm still processing their change to Vortex that now has a cast time, my friends. It now is not instant and cannot be dropped as you keep walking. That upsets me. And I have not spoken to you about my favorite Holy Flame Totem and any other of the builds that I also love. But the video is already very long, and I'm impressed if you're still watching. If you're still watching, please give me a like, as I give you a like right now. I like you. I like you for sticking around and supporting this channel and being a Path of Exile enthusiast. I look forward to Affliction builds and the league starting very soon, and you absolutely can expect me to play this league and come to you with a lot more content on Path of Exile. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'll talk to you next week about something else, likely Path of Exile related. Goodbye for now.